11 a.m. as we invoke the thought-provoking discussion, tackle the tough questions, challenge assumption, and give a voice to the unheard. This is the Morning Express on Mainland 98.3 FM.
The Morning Express.
Good morning.
Good morning and welcome to radio. My name is Sage Babalola. Another beautiful opportunity to converse with you and also keep you up to speed with all of the events playing out within the economy, within the polity and beyond. This is Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. My name is Sage Babalola. The Morning Express kicks off at 5 a.m. and runs off at 11 a.m. It constitutes different segments where we address critical issues, we bring up interesting conversations, news analysis, whatever desire you might have when it comes to information. I can assure you we are very well prepped to deliver on your needs. Once again, welcome to the Morning Express on Mainland FM. The segment of the Morning Express is called Trends in the Papers. This is where we look at the headlines, we explore diverse perspective, we give you critical analysis, pretty much keeping you up to speed or keeping you abreast of the reports that have been put together by our different newspapers. The Guardian, Punch and Vanguard newspapers are the papers we analyze every morning here at Mainland 98.3 FM for Trends in the Papers. Well, I'm here to provide the stories, but for the analysis that is also promised to you, Fᴜʟʟ is always on standby and he joins us virtually to have a conversation as we look through the front pages of our dailies. Fᴜʟʟ, good morning to you. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Sage. How are you doing? I'm good.
I'm well, thank you. How's been your morning so far? And I'm referring to access to PMS.
Well, PMS have been managing still, the way we've been trying to cope. At least in the last 2 weeks, I've been buying at an average of 850, 900 naira per liter. Because again, I can't waste valuable time queuing to get PMS, where I probably will get at 580, 600 or 650 naira per liter. I have to be on the move, really, Sage. So that's what I've been doing. Although sometimes, when I have the time, I try to get from the major, filling stations that sell at the average of 585, 600, 660. But a lot of times I just have to get into the smaller petrol stations that sell at 900, 950 naira per liter. I still did that on Sunday. I bought at now 50 naira per liter. That's what I've been using. I'm hoping to maybe top up today. I have the time to go to the major market.
All right. I guess that sort of ushers us into the first headline that we have on the front page of the Punch newspaper, because the headline reads, Federal Government to shut errant filling stations as petrol hits 1,000 naira to a litre. And the story in itself says many filling stations operated by independent oil marketers have now fixed the pump prices of premium motor spirit, popularly called petrol, at between 900 naira to 1,000 naira per litre. Now, owners of these stations do not seem to care about the cost of the product at the retail outlets that are operated by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited. Petrol prices at NNPC station range from 568 to 670 naira to a litre, and it often leads to queues at the station. But Nigerians have raised concern, and through the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, they have stressed that those marketers that are profiting off the fuel crisis might see their filling stations shut down. And this is me summarizing the entire report. Well, Fᴜʟʟ, we might see the federal government through the NMDPRA step into the situation to manage the surge in the price of PMS, especially at private depots. Now, the punishment for the excessive increase in the price of the product is they might see their filling station get shut down. But here's the argument for it. The downstream sector is deregulated, meaning that it's impossible for you to control the price. The option of price control is totally eradicated. So, and these marketers, well, so they say, and these depot owners are claiming that they're buying at 850 naira. But then we have from the private depots, and then we have the NMDPRA saying that, well, the figures that are displayed at your filling stations do not tally with the amounts that you're selling the product. Because why would you display, for example, that you're selling for 600 and then people get to the pump and you're selling for 900, 1,000 naira? So any depot or any filling station, right, that is caught in the act will be shut down. I want to understand first of all the legality of this. If you cannot control the price, especially at the downstream sector, do you really have the right to shut down these filling stations for selling at a price that they believe to be beneficial to them?
Well, the confusion we have at the downstream sector. One breath will tell you that look, it's a segment of the value chain that has been completely deregulated and is supposed to be handled using the principles of market force. Market force is basically a willing buyer, a willing seller. Means what you buy is what you sell. You determine how much you want to sell. And if you have someone who is not comfortable with the price, you just go to the next one, just like I've been doing. If you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Remember that when the subsidy regime was announced to have been ended by this current administration, one of the things that was said to Nigerians, and I think military, of course, was one of the major proponents of the idea of the fact that look, now you have the factors of demand and supply that will be determining what happens at the downstream sector. There's no more regulation. And in fact, one of the things they sold to Nigerians at that time is that look, it's going to also create an opportunity for competition, and it's probably going to get to the point where prices will now start to drop, because people will now start to use pricing as a mechanism for competition. We have not seen any of that stage. So that's also another lie that was told to Nigerians that we are now beginning to understand was just a mere statement. Really, there was no policy direction really to achieve that. So what you have is a situation where you have these officials that are just basically lying to themselves. The problem is, look, there's a supply shortfall, see, and that's why it's easy for anybody to want to begin to take advantage of the situation to make a lot of money off Nigerians. If there's enough supply, see, ordering is difficult when the supply outweighs demand, or if supply at least meets up with the demand you have. It will be difficult for anybody to order. There's a reason why anybody would be thinking of profiteering from this situation, and that's because there's a problem with supply. That problem is what they should fix. Forget about look, the officials of the NMDPRA are going to get themselves unnecessarily busy now, going around, probably some of them will even make money from the process of jumping from one filling station in the name of trying to fill them up. If you understand what I'm saying. The real problem is, look, there's a problem with supply sufficiency. Deal with that, make the product available. A lot of these independent marketers have told you, they've explained to you that look, a lot of times when they get to the private depot owners, this is the price they are buying from them. They buy at an average of 850 naira per litre.
Yes.
Although the NMDPRA guys are saying that no, the report they are getting from the depot does not say that is the amount they sell to them. But look, official report is different from the reality. I've been going to really check if there's something happening at that level. The other one that the independent marketers guys have also told you that look, some of them have even made direct deposits to the NNPCL, and they have not been able to get products. So what they do is to get from like the tertiary market. Some of the major marketers who have these products just give them, okay, maybe if you have like 4 tankers, give us one. And you know that with that kind of arrangement, it can never be official price. Something would happen.
Yeah. So
all of this is happening again because the NNPCL is not able to bring in enough product. Whatever is leading to that, they should address it, fix it, and let us have enough supply. If there's enough supply, you can't order. I've not seen a situation where people order when supply is sufficient. I've just seen a situation where a product is readily available, sufficiently available, and people are still ordering.
Of course not.
It's not possible. It won't even make sense for you to order in a situation where the product is available, it is in abundance. Ordering only can happen to the extent that people now start to profiteer from high prices when there is no supply and the demand is higher, and that's what we are saying. So they should create that balance. Let us have enough supply, and you see that all of this profiteering, all of these things will just disappear on its own. That's what they should. I don't believe in this idea of people going around trying to steal off filling stations. It's just going to be this idea of getting busy unnecessarily. Okay, how many filling stations can they even go to? How many officials do they have?
Exactly. And it varies from region to region. Actually, it's more expensive in some regions. So, would you go all the way far north?
And like you have said, to me they said it's a deregulated market already.
Exactly.
Nobody's fixing
You can't
the price.
fix the price.
But we know it's a lie. They are also fixing prices. Yes, they'll tell you no, it's more of price control, consumer protection. Of course, that will come into the conversation. But what we are saying is that look, even the idea of deregulating that sector is a complete lie. Most of the license owners are not bringing in anything. You still have a supply monopoly from the NNPCLC. And so when you have a supply monopoly, where is the deregulation coming from? The idea of regulation coming from? Nothing has been deregulated. What I see is people making, serious money off Nigerians. Avoidable situation has created the opportunity for people to make this kind of money. And you can't really blame them. I'm sure if you go to those stores selling for 900, 950, they will tell you that look, this is how we got the product. So by the time we added logistics and our own profit margin, this is the amount we can sell. And Nigerians don't mind buying from them because the product is not available. So when it's available, like I told you, I've been buying at 900, 950 naira per liter. It's painful. It's difficult for me to do that. But I can't go 3-4 hours, where it is being sold for 850 or where it's being sold for 585 or 600 naira per liter. If the product was available, this cannot happen. So they should fix the real problem and stop disturbing us with all of this narrative.
So basically, you think that's an effort in futility? It would not in any way
affect
the price adjustment.
It's not the problem.
All right.
Well, are you aware? See, let's in the last 8 months of this administration, have you noticed that it's been a consistent pattern? There's hardly any month, at least within 2 months, you're going to have this kind of situation.
Yes.
It's almost like a consistent pattern now. So instead of all of these statements to deflect on the real issues that distract Nigerians and disturb us, they should fix the problem, the real problem.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that. That report is on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. For those of you that are just joining the program, you can join our live stream on Facebook and on YouTube. For Facebook is facebook.com/mainland 98.3 FM. For YouTube is at mainland FM. You can also listen via Radio Garden at mainland 98.3 FM. Those are the multiple platforms through which you can join the conversation. So you listen to us via the radio. You listen via Radio Garden. You can also watch us live on Facebook and on YouTube. The handle is the same across board at mainland 98.3 FM. It's trends in the papers. We're looking at the Punch newspaper. Fouad is here trying to lay some sort of foundation or give us backstories regarding the reports that we are reviewing. We recently just spoke about the plans by the federal government through the NMDPRA to seal up filling stations who are selling PMS at outrageous prices. Unfortunately, we now have filling stations that are selling as high as 8,000 naira to a liter. A very unsustainable price, if you ask me. But then moving on to further headlines, Punch still tells us West African Senior School Certificate Examination, ASU, NUT differ as federal government bans under 18 candidates. Now we have here that the Nigerian Union of Teachers have condemned the federal government's decision to ban under 18 candidates from sitting for the West African Senior School Certificate exam and the National Examination Council, even as the Academic Staff Union of Universities have backed the policy. The Minister of Education, Professor Tahir Mamman, announced on Channels TV program that the federal government had instituted a new age policy for secondary school leaving examination, setting the minimum age for 18. Fouad, we have this conversation back again in the news. I think a few weeks ago, when it first came out, there was a lot of backlash on social media with people citing instances of we have a very unstable education sector, right? Chances that a strike would happen would pose a very difficult problem for students. But we have other arguments saying that these children are not yet matured enough to deal with all of the many hassles that comes with being in the tertiary education. But Professor Tahir Mamman, the education minister, is saying that if we actually go through the normal formula for how long student, yes, 18 is the appropriate age, and if a student finishes early, why not take that time to learn a vocation? So when you're getting into the university, you have a vocation. Obviously that training has in a way matured you and you're ready for whatever tax or inconveniences that might come with being in a learning institution. So these are the two sides of the argument, Fouad. How exactly can we sort of find a middle ground, some sort of compromise with this decision that has now been made?
Well, there are two issues here, Sage.
Right.
think the first issue is that where does this leave our gifted children? There are gifted children. Yes, we call them gifted children because look, they are able to do some of these things irrespective of their age. They get into these things. Look, we've seen people, we've seen children, that come up with special talent. So where would you keep our gifted children who, I'm sure some of them can write this exam at the age of 15?
Oh, I think we lost that connection. Not to worry, we'll reconnect with Fouad. We're still having a conversation about the decision of the federal government, of course, via the Ministry of Education, choosing to, limit the age in which students can take examinations, especially WAEC and NECO, to 18 years old. So anybody based the outcome of the meeting that they had with ASU. Remember that meeting? The conclusion is that students who have taken the exam this year, they would be unaffected by this policy. They would go through, but then starting from the next examination, that's NECO WAEC, you have to be at 16-year-olds. You're not necessarily matured enough to deal with the hassles of a tertiary institution. And if you finish secondary school early, why not take up vocational training, right? Rather than just jump straight into the university. And then there's the other argument that the education sector is too unstable, is too unpredictable. There's still the strike action amongst other things. So if you keep a child till they're 18 to get into the university, and then they have to go through strike actions 2-3 years, is an absolute waste of time. And there's also the considerations for employment nowadays, where employers peg the age that they want when they put out applications. They say you have to be below 26, you have to be below 24 years old. So what's going to happen if you're actually just graduating at the age of, say, 23, 24, the mandatory NYSC, you're already 25, you spend 3 years looking for a job, now you're 27 and no employer wants you. These are some of the arguments that have come up with this policy. Fouad, do we have you now?
Yes, I'm here.
Please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, so again, we have to look at our gifted children, and of course, what I think, Sage, is that look, yes, the Minister of Education is looking at the situation that at Basic 5 schools, I think, allow that look, you start big. I think as early as 4 or 5 years now, while some people who are already in Basic 1 and jam. By sometimes 16 years, these guys are ready to write this exam, and sometimes they pass, do very well. What I think is that look, there are two issues you have to look at here. When you write WAEC, you can use it. It's not time bound, right? You write WAEC and you pass. It's not time bound. You can use it when you now decide to use it. But there's a problem with JAM, and I think that conversation has also come up. That can't JAM be written in such a way that at least it can last for 5 years before it expires. This idea of you write it this time, even if you pass and you are not able to secure the admission you want, you can't use it in next admission year. It's also a problem. So you have situations where people also, because of that, want to rush their words to write it, but they don't know whether they're going to pass or not. So what I think is that look, you can limit at 16 years or 15 years. You can at least minimum age 16 years. You can write WAEC and JAM. If you pass, the problem is when should these students be admitted into the university? And I think that's what the minister is looking at. Look, if you are able to pass WAEC and JAM at 15, it's not a problem. You are writing the exam and you are passed. But the entry age to go into university, I think, is the issue here. That look, you are rushing these guys into a world that comes with all manner of things too early. If you understand what I'm saying, and I agree. If you understand what can come with the university environment, if your mind is not a bit formed, if you are not structured mentally, you could go into that environment and become something else. And we see situations where some of these guys go into this. I'm not talking of the private school, even in the private university. We have situations where all manner of vices now comes in. Substance abuse, cultism, and all manner of things comes into play. So I think that the entry point to get into university should now be the conversation. So if you have a child, for example, that is so gifted and has been able to write the exam at the age of 15, 16 and passed very well, if JAM is not going to be a 1 year thing, maybe 5 years, at the age of 18, between 16 to 18, you can get them trained in some other skills. There are vocational things that can be learned. There are other skills that you can pick up. A lot of people also do computer training and something. Where at that point you are preparing their mind to go into the university. So I also think that look, it's not too good to rush our kids into the university. 18 is good, entry age into university. But I think that restricting them to writing exam at the age of 18 is wrong. If a child is ready, prepped enough and gifted enough to pass this exam at 15, 16, why not? But going into university, I think we should look at the entry age, and I think 18 is not bad. My honest opinion, say.
All right then. That's also on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. This is, by the way, Fuad. But then I just wish that they put this much energy into ending child marriage, to be honest. Because if you believe I'm sorry, if you believe very strongly that at 16 you're incapable of dealing with why is a 13-year-old allowed to get married in some parts of the country? Put that same energy in abolishing child marriage if you think they're not mature enough to deal with
I agree with you. So, you know, the issue of child marriage now would have bring cultural, religious sentiment into the conversation. Because I've seen a lot of people who have also said that, look, if you think 16 years is not good enough to write WAEC and JAM, but 12, 13 is good enough to go into marriage, and there's a problem. So I agree with you completely, really. I agree with you completely that, you know, some of these things should also be put on the table. Why you know, open these kids into things that they are not prepared, emotionally prepared to handle. If you understand what I'm saying. So I agree with you completely, but again, that would now expand the conversation to looking at cultural implications, religious implications, and if we start all of that, they won't leave the studio.
Obviously, and I have people that will probably flog me when they call. Anyways, let's...
They don't flog you. It's just what it is. We have to talk about it sometime, but you know, I think this morning, let's just make it a conversation for another day.
Right. Well, moving on to other headlines here. Still on the front page of the Punch, doctors kidnap, patient grown as NARD strike grounds hospitals. Now, the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors on Monday commenced a 7-day warning strike to push for the rescue of a Kaduna-based doctor, Dr. Ganiyat Popola, who was kidnapped last December and has spent about 8 months in the abductor's den. The strike, which held across the country, left patients stranded and doctors shunned work. The Minister of State for Health, Dr. Tunji Alausa, on Monday held a meeting with the leadership of NARD over the situation, and the president of NARD, Dr. Dele Abdullahi, disclosed this in a telephone interview with The Punch. He says, "We met with the minister and he said he would write the National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu, regarding the issue and get back to us." Fuad, this is a conversation that has gone on for so long. I literally just captured with the side of my eye on television a list of doctors that have been abducted over the space of 3 to 4 years. It's too much. Well, for a country that is going through brain drain, the best of us are leaving the country, and the few ones that we have here are being abducted. This sort of catalyzes the need for these doctors to want to leave the country. They are not safe, and they're not even getting enough remuneration for the services that they offer, and now they're being abducted. And now the doctors are on strike, which means that people who are at the hospital do not have access to care. So they've just abandoned patients at the hospital now. So what happens to patients that need essential care 24/7 round the clock?
Well, I think there are, special arrangements for critical situations. Because I've been trying to follow this story, and I think the NAD guys, what they've done basically is to allow some of the officials do some skeletal services, just take care of some emergency situations. But it's not going to be enough, really. So you have situations where patients are now, left, to look at other options. It's a 7-day warning strike stage. So we are hoping that, something will be done. I think last week you had the same conversation where the Minister of Health had to write the NSA and the IG of police that, look, Dr. Ganiyat Popola has been in this kidnappers den for over 8 months, since December. See, I think she was kidnapped along with her husband and I think maybe
a nephew.
The husband had been released. I suspected that maybe something happened, maybe around some bucket and what have you. But she's in there, and I think her nephew too is still with the kidnappers. And what the doctors are saying is that, look, there seems to be no sense of urgency, no sense of direction on how to get this woman out. She's been there since December. And the funny thing about these things is that, look, when we live our normal life, when we hear this story, I'm sure when she was abducted, the issue was reported.
And
I'm sure when we viewed it in the paper like every other normal thing, and we forgot her there. I'm sure it's only our family that has been dealing with the trauma of our abduction. We go doing our normal things. Look at the list you're also talking about now. Several doctors. And it's not just about doctors now. Nigerians generally. it's become a big issue. Forget about the fact that, we try to, gloss over it. I think it's a major issue, and the security concern in the country has gotten to the point where we need to ask ourselves, how did we get here? Nobody nowhere is safe because it's a security agent. They go about it. Look at what happened to the traditional ruler in Sokoto State.
Yeah, there's a monarch that was killed.
The district head, what they call it, is a district head of this state. And in the same way, 150 people have still now been abducted in that community. So it's a big problem. And maybe the little shake-up we're seeing now was a new path, really. Because again, I'm sure it's one of the things we're going to discuss. We need to do something, see. Hello?
Be had with Nuhu Ribadu, right, to see what they can do. Maybe, well, I wouldn't say negotiate. We really cannot predict how they're choosing to handle this matter. But then it's imperative that we
see. This is the first time we're negotiating. Look, you see, we need to tell ourselves the truth, really. Look at the story of the district head. He was tortured. He was killed. Saved. I think to have his first son also released, a 60 million ransom was also paid.
Yeah.
And from that same community and adjoining community, the same people came back now and have abducted about 150 people. So what does that tell you? It's almost looking like a hopeless situation. Yes, now the president has now had a little shake-up. The DD of the DSS and the NIS have been reduced. But again, the question is, do we have the capacity? How did we get to this point? What are the weak links? What do we do now? Is it a hopeless, helpless situation? Every time we look at insecurity in Nigeria, what comes to mind? Our interview with Sheikh keeps ringing in my head. Our interview with Sheikh keeps ringing in my head. The man is saying that, look, the approach is not going to work.
Right.
You have to look at a different approach. You might not like it that people will think, oh, he's an extremist, he has always, supported the idea of extremism, blah, blah, blah. But we need to ask ourselves, are we handling the situation the right way? Are there other ways to handle this? Do we have the capacity? So that we can really solve the problem than continue to endure and tolerate. It's unfortunate, really, what has the call of Nigerians when it comes to the level of insecurity, especially when it comes to banditry and kidnapping across the country. Very, very unfortunate,
Unfortunate indeed. It's on page 7 of the Punch newspaper. It still trends in the papers on mainland 98.3 FM. My name is Sage Babalola. Fᴜʟᴜ is with us virtually, and we're looking at the front page of the Punch newspaper. We're still streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube. Mainland 98.3 FM. You can take advantage of the live chat option to drop your comments in real time. I do see a few of your messages. I'll take them when we open the phone lines and start taking public opinion. But you can still drop your messages as we go through the stories, because you might not have the chance to do that for Mainland Focus when we get back at 8:40. But regardless, let's still finish with the news piece that we have here. Well, for the Punch newspaper, all the other headlines here: former Punch editor to present book on digital economy. We have here ASU protest LASU members dismissal. Brand's VC enemy is on page 4 and 5. On page 45, we have Nigeria's first Olympic medalist Mayegun dies at 85. He won bronze in 1964 Tokyo Olympics, right? He died of natural causes at 85. First Nigerian medalist, right? So at least he got to watch the last one, the Paris Olympics, before he died. So may his soul rest in peace, and thank you for bringing honor to the country. So we have on page 10, PDP jubilates as appeal court restores Ighodalo's candidacy. That's on page 10, I believe.
Good one for the PDP in Edo State.
I believe on midweek politics you have conversations about this.
We will talk about that. Right. But the Supreme Court will have a final. I'm sure it's going to get it.
Well, any victory is victory, Fuad. Any victory is victory for the PDP, especially for the PDP. Any victory is victory. It's
for Ighodalo, I saw him on TV yesterday, and you could see that relief really after that judgment. So I think some more energy really for him to go into. It's one election has not been tried. So we have and Okwemi will be in Edo State really give us that report, so we'll see how it goes.
That's good. Let's look at this one here. 136 Europe-bound African migrants rescued at Spanish port. Very briefly, emergency responders on Monday rescued 136 Europe-bound African migrants from a boat off the coast of the Canary island of El Hierro. El Hierro is the second smallest and farthest south and west of the Canary Islands in the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Africa. Just for time management's sake, I think we understand the trajectory of the story. Migration, especially illegal migration, where people risk their life to leave Africa and into Europe. And the death rate does not seem to be deterring people. As much as we get numbers of people who die at sea, hundreds of thousands of them every single year, we still get reports that people, and they pay money for this. They pay money for this to be illegally, more or less, trafficked from Africa to Europe. And now I think they were stuck, and 136 of them have, well, fortunately been rescued, and obviously they are going to be brought back to Africa. So that's what it is, Fuad.
Very unfortunate, really. That's why it's important for African leaders to look at themselves and continue to ask themselves some real questions as to the love they have for this wonderful continent, this blessed continent, the rich continent of Africa. Why has it gotten to the point where our people are living in droves? They just want to do anything to migrate to the other part of the world, for greener pasture. Really, it's a leadership failure, see. No matter what you think, it's just what it is. Complete leadership failure that has led us to a point where this unfortunate situation has become the lot of Africans. The Sahara Desert people are there. The people on the Atlantic are also there. Just doing everything to just want to leave Mother Africa. Mother Africa, blessed Mother Africa, that is supposed to take care of its own children, has become a mother that leadership has failed completely. It's complete leadership failure. Look at Cameroon now. 93 years, he still wants to contest.
I knew you were going to bring that up.
93. There's a problem somewhere. So, how do you explain that? 93. That's a man that's been in power from 1982. So why would you want to, it's enough for me to say, look, I want to leave this country.
I'm not doing it.
This is so happening. I don't do it again. I'm tired.
Well,
I look at even the story of Nigeria to say, we're not in the worst situation. Nigerians have been abducted. Look at recently somewhere in Niger State, 13 farmers were killed just because they gave out information to security operatives. A doctor has been abducted since December. A district head was killed. The son has to pay ransom to be released. While we are still dealing with that, 150 people have been abducted. It's not enough for you to want to run out. Let's be honest here. Yes, we have this problem, but how well are we dealing with the problem? Added to that is the shenanigans of our politicians, the level of corruption, poor healthcare, poor education. Nothing happening for Africans really. And it's not just it's a general problem in Africa. South Africa that used to be some form of beacon of hope for Africa, it's also having its own problems with leadership. It also goes back to leadership. We can be better really, so that we don't continue to have this kind of stories being told of Africans, being rescued, while on a dinghy boat on the Mediterranean or the Atlantic or other parts of our water bodies in the world. Very, very unfortunate. Some of these things. It's shameful for Africans to continue to see these kinds of things.
Well, that story is on page 43 of the Punch newspaper. We're about to segue now to the Guardian newspaper. The top story here, Tinubu hints at economic recovery amid inflation deficit concerns. There are a number of riders here. Nigeria spends 225% of revenue in 2023 as deficit rises to 13.5 trillion. Federal government services debt with 8.56 trillion naira in 2023. Transport or Greek sector drag as country grows GDP by 3.19% in Q2 2024. That's the second quarter of 2024. GDP growth blind to economic reality, says Onyekbere. Experts caution government against frivolous spending and corruption. Now to the story itself, though President Bola Tinubu hailed the latest report by the National Bureau of Statistics on the state of the economy, which saw the country's gross national product or gross domestic product, whichever you prefer, GDP, posting new growth, there are concerns about the economic reality on ground, especially as it relates to high inflation and fiscal indiscipline within the administration. Now, according to the NBS, the real GDP grew by 3.2% year-on-year in the second quarter, higher than the 2.51% recorded in the same period of 2023. So here is the contradiction, Fuad. The NBS is putting out a report that our GDP grew in comparison to our GDP over the same period of time in 2023, 3.2% growth. But then the report is highlighting the contradiction with the current realities that we have. We're talking inflation figure, both headline and food inflation. We're talking about the unemployment rate. We're talking about the supply challenges that we're going through, amongst the many other factors to consider. The amount of people that are living below the poverty line, 133 million of them, and what have you. So how is it that we have these figures, right, that sort of interprets the day-to-day reality of the average Nigerian, but the NBS is putting out a report that our GDP has grown by 3.2%, higher than the 2.51 we saw last year. So we have experts who are trying to reconcile these two realities, the NBS report and the reality of the average Nigerian.
And the easiest way to measure any economic, all economic indices comes to one thing: the living standards of the people.
Right.
So the easiest way to measure economic performance of any administration is to look at the living standards of the people. Has it gotten better? Every other thing is just you speaking English. See, all the economic indices shows is all based on something. What has been the living standards of the people? Are you with me, Sage?
Yes, I am.
Because again, at the end of the day, people are going to start to argue. If I'm one of my friends, of course, an APC member, yesterday sent the data to me. And then your GDP has gotten better, it has dropped, so and this GDP NBS figures. I said, good. But at the end of the day, this does not translate into better living for people. It's just going to be a mere numbers, mere academic exercise. See, until people start to feel the impact of this economic progress or achievement, so to say, in their living standard, they will amount to nothing. Are they better off? What's the value of healthcare, education, infrastructure? What's the value of the monies in their pockets? What can their monies do for them? Those are the things that, you don't have to be an economist to measure that, to understand whether the economy is performing well or not. It's about the living standards of the people. If it has gotten better, the NBS report will now start to make sense. But if it's on the other way, like you said, then it's a contradiction, and then people say that, look, you guys are just adding up numbers and just playing with numbers. So at the end of the day, I think the government should not. Yes, of course, this is a government that will be desperate to celebrate any little win. If you understand what I'm saying. But beyond this issue, the real issues should be, how do we ensure we take more people out of poverty? How do we improve the living standards of the people? How do we create value for the monies in their pocket? And then, of course, make their lives better. Improve infrastructure, healthcare, education. Those are the things the government should be working towards, not really playing with figures. Yes, you're going to look at the figures, but the figures will just remain mere numbers if it does not translate into better living for the people.
But then, can we consider this some sort of indication that we are on the right path? We might see the outcome in the long term, even if we're not seeing it now. Is this in any way a pointer that we're doing the right things?
Well, it depends on the way you want to say. It's a perception issue. Yeah, why not? Again, like I said, this is a good one for to justify all of the narratives that have been coming from the government. That look, we are going to get there. We are not far away from getting there. Yes, we're taking baby steps, but we'll definitely get there. But I'm saying that, look, they shouldn't be distracted with this. There's a lot that still needs to be done, really, because it's not just about the figures now. It's about the tangible things you can say, yes, this is what we're able to do. This is how it is impacting the lives of the people. People want to see real impact, not the figures. That's what I'm saying. See.
All right. Well, you can get that story on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. We're first coming to the end of the program, but then let's take as many stories as we can before the end of the show. We have here on the front page of the Guardian, IPOB threatens violence, alleges ethnic cleansing in Imo. So this is a rather sensitive one, and I'll try so hard to make sure that we're conscious of our choice of words. Now, but let me read the report in itself. The indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, have raised the alarm over what it described as the secret and indiscriminate elimination of Igbo youth, particularly in Olu, Imo State. The pro-Biafra group, in a statement by its media and publicity secretary, Ima Powerful, titled "Nigerian government is secretly silencing the southeast region," alleging that the Nigerian army and the Nigeria police were behind the dastardly act. IPOB condemned the alleged indiscriminate and extrajudicial execution of Igbo youths across the southeast region, particularly in Olu province of Imo State. And they also highlighted the latest alleged extrajudicial execution that happened recently. Ima Powerful claims that some youths from Obidi Ogberuru of Ihite Owerri in Olu, they were killed by soldiers, and this is just one of some of the most horrible silent ethnic cleansing practices that the Nigerian government is sponsoring against Indigo in the region. Mind you, this is me quoting what was being said by Ima Powerful. This is a very hefty allegation against the security forces. IPOB is claiming, or Ima Powerful, since the statement has been attributed to him, obviously a stakeholder in IPOB, is claiming that we have the security operatives who are going about killing young people in the southeastern region of the country, particularly in Imo State, and he calls this some sort of ethnic cleansing that is currently going on, and he thinks it's a conspiracy by the federal government. What exactly do you think is responsible for this very unsettling allegations that have been leveled against the federal government by this individual?
Before dealing with that allegation, it's important I would mention that Olu area of Imo State has been very, very problematic. The reports we've been getting from that part of Imo State really troubling. I think it's almost like a deserted part of the state. The security situation has been very, very bad. All manner of activities, whether you call them unknown or known gunmen, one of those situations where I think there was a time they saw a mass grave somewhere in that area. So terrible crimes are being committed in that part of the state. I think there was even a time where the governor had visited and he was almost shedding tears as to the level of crime and criminality that have been committed in that part of the state. Again, IPOB in Nigeria has been designated a terrorist organization. I think we need to also mention that because again, some of the allegations of some of the things they seem to be promoting, the violence they seem to be promoting against the state. But again, we also have to ask ourselves, these allegations of extrajudicial killing is something I think has to be investigated with, because since we run a democracy and we're governed by laws, unless there are evidence to show that there's an exchange of gunfire, and then of course the security operatives had no other choice but to take down some of these guys. These are all allegations, we don't have the facts. But again, we've also seen videos of quote and unquote unknown gunmen now allegedly said to be IPOB guys also killing security operatives. We've seen policemen being killed, we've seen soldiers being killed by those that have been alleged to be IPOB members or in the disguise of unknown gunmen. The most important thing that something has to happen with this issue of IPOB and agitations in the southeast. And I think one of the issues that we need to look at, and we made several suggestions on that matter, is the issue of Nnamdi Kanu. Whether we like it or not, it's time for us to look at the political solution to the Nnamdi Kanu issue. I've suggested that, look, it cannot be unconditional release. It should be released, but with some stringent conditions. And the conditions should also be tied to the fact that, look, you seem to have maybe the ears of these guys who are agitating. Speak with your people, be the peace ambassador of that region now. Open up the conversation with government. Come to the negotiation table. You can agitate without picking up arms against the state. That's what we are saying. Yes, we understand the failure of government. We understand the issue of discrimination, marginalization. These are conversations that we can have in a more, with some level of decorum, without threatening the peace of the country. Because look, no matter how agitated you think you are, once you pick up arms against the state, the government will have to naturally react. It was very peaceful region has become a region where we now talk about unknown government killing people. Students cannot even go out to write exams. Monday has become a problem. The southeast region we grew up to know what a very peaceful, joyous place for people to go to and enjoy themselves. People do businesses without any form of action. Look at the story now. So I think from the part of the government and the part of the agitators, there's a need for us to now look at how to come together and solve the problem of the Southeast. And I think one of the first steps would have to look for political solutions to the Kano factor, and then bring him onto the table to now begin to, it can become the ambassador of peace in that region, depending on the way the government wants to now handle it. I think governors who have told the president, we leave him to us, we know what to do. Even though I really don't trust the president, because again, a lot of the things you are seeing as an institution in different parts of the world comes from the failure of these governors to be able to really impact their people. Despite the huge resources that is going to the subnational. But at the end of the day, something has to happen. We cannot be continuous killing and crime, all coming from this point of agitation. Every time I really don't know. I think that's like, you know,
a little extreme.
Yeah, it's a bit extreme word to use, really. Because again, remember, a lot of these security operatives are also from the South. If you look at the structure of our security operatives, it's not a matter of, I'm sure there are Igbos who are also soldiers who probably have lost their life in this agitation. I'm sure there are policemen who are also from the Southeast who probably have lost their lives too.
What?
And innocent people of that region too.
What?
The problem.
Powerful is of the opinion that the fact that there's heavy police presence in Olu is also a factor that is exacerbating the violence there. That's what they think. There's too much.
There's a problem there.
So his opinion is that the heavy presence is responsible as well.
Look, you cannot heavy presence. There was something that led to that amount of deployment. I've told you. We think
the crime.
Several reports of crime rates and all manner of things happening in that region. If you are peaceful, look, you like put all the soldiers in the world there. So far you go about your. I think that it's not about the presence now. It's about what is happening in that part of the state.
All right.
There's something going on in that part of the state that is quite problematic, and something has to be done really.
Well, we're almost out of time, actually. We have less than a minute to leave, but that story is on page 29 of the Guardian newspaper. Very briefly, we have this particular story here. Falana rallies MBA against illegal arrest, detention by police, others. Human rights activist and senior advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, has urged the Nigeria Bar Association to adopt measures to end the illegal arrest and detention of innocent citizens by the police and other law enforcement agency. He actually gave a few recommendations. He believes that at least magistrates should visit prisons as often as possible, and lawyers should offer pro bono services to a lot of the detainees. And he also spoke about how security agencies keep breaching the fundamental human rights of individuals. For example, you're not supposed to hold a person more than 24 hours if you're not going to charge them to court. But then we see also policemen who stop people on the road, search their phones, search their bags. You're also not allowed to conduct a search unless you have credible evidence beforehand, or you have a search warrant that this individual might be a danger to the public. But then you just randomly stop people on the road, you search them, you harass them, throw them in prison for days without charging them to court. Femi Falana is saying that the Nigeria Bar Association needs to hold the police and have conversations with them, I beg your pardon, and educate them on the needs to start upholding the fundamental human rights of the Nigerian people. Briefly, Fuad, if you can.
Perfect, yes. I think that's one thing I think the Nigerian Bar Association needs to do. So that it's not just an association of lawyers who push their own agenda alone. The society should begin to feel their impact. They have branches everywhere. Those are some of the things they have to help to do in the society, so that people can begin to feel the impact. It's a societal problem we have identified now. Harassment from security officials, tension, the prisons are filled up with people awaiting trials. Some of them very frivolous, unnecessary cases, and people are languishing in jail. I think it's one challenge that the Nigerian Bar Association should pick up, so that Nigerians can now not just see them as an association of lawyers who just put their own interest to, but who are also working, to better the society and impact the society positively. I agree with All
right. Well, thank you very much, Fuad. We actually have to go right now. We are due for a commercial, but we'll be back at 8:40 in about 10 minutes to open the phone lines in our multiple channels to hear what you have to say about the stories that have been addressed for trends in the papers. I'm Sage Babalola. Fuad Side will also be joining us for Mainland Focus, and our Facebook and YouTube platforms will be open as well. Don't go anywhere. The conversation continues.